Welcome back to the Illinois Broadband Lab series, co-hosted by the Illinois Office of Broadband, the U of I System, U of I Extension, Benton Institute for Broadband and Society. And we are happy to welcome back Shubika Agrawal, Illinois Broadband Lab Coordinator. She is going to lead us in a discussion today around the funding opportunities. And we are so lucky to have you on and have our presenters on. This is just continues to be very helpful for communities. And so we're grateful for the update around opportunities today and any of that pertinent information, as well as the continued information about the community roles that are involved in broadband and digital equity. So we are very happy to have this webinar series. We have one more after this one, and we're happy today to be focusing on these topics. Shubika, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you. Thank you so much for organizing our event today.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Shubika Agrawal with the Illinois Broadband Lab. Welcome to today's webinar. We're really happy to coordinate this series with Illinois Extension, Benton Institute, and all of our other partners. So today's webinar is part of Illinois Broadband Lab Summer webinar series, the Track B, which is basically broadband and digital equity education and opportunities. So this is specifically designed for local leaders, community stakeholders, and residents who are looking to learn on how to increase broadband access, adoption, and use in their communities. Today, we'll be focusing on broadband funding, partnerships, and project development specifically. We'll hear from Hancock County and from Joe Carroll Energy about their amazing work in their community and in their service areas respectively. So it's going to be basically hearing from both the sides, from the community and also from the service provider, about their perspectives on building partnerships, the process of project development, and also the different sources of broadband funding that are available out there. We'll be starting with Samantha from Hancock County. She's our speaker today, and they have also been part of the Broadband Breakthrough Program through the Illinois Office of Broadband. So a quick introduction for Samantha. Samantha has been part of the Hancock County Economic Development Corporations, and she's the executive director for over 2 years now. In this time, she has seen the need to expand broadband throughout the county, but specifically in the more rural areas. When the opportunity to participate in the Broadband Breakthrough Program came about, she jumped at the chance to put together a team, and an amazing team at that. And as a team leader, Samantha was able to better understand the needs of business, residents, and organizations, as well as participate in formulating a plan for the future of broadband in Hancock County. So Samantha, really excited to learn more about it, and I'll pass it on to you now.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Shubika. Thank you for having me. As Shubika mentioned, we did participate in the Broadband Breakthrough 2 years ago when I started at Hancock County Economic Development as the executive director. It was clear to me that it wasn't even after the pandemic. I literally started in June of 21, and everybody was still wearing masks and everybody was still social distancing, and everybody was trying very hard to make sure they had what they needed to continue running their businesses, running the communities. And we were community-wise, business-wise, I don't believe we lost, here in Hancock County, I don't believe we lost any businesses to the pandemic. No one shut down because of that, because of aid and whatnot coming from state and federal sources. However, there were a lot of individuals and organizations and communities that just realized, okay, we're not where we need to be. If this happens again, or if this has to be sustained, we can't. It's not sustainable. So starting there, we were okay, we're going to put together this great team, but we really didn't know where to go. And that was a pretty major problem. Myself being so new to the area as well as to the position, I kind of wanted to find out a little bit more about the community itself and the businesses and organizations within it. So when I got a call from Roger Pavey with WIRC who said, hey, have you seen this broadband breakthrough? And I said, no. I might be across my desk, maybe, so he got me in touch with the Benton Institute and said, you've got to apply for this. Hancock County was identified as one of 14 counties that was lacking in rural broadband. And so when we had the opportunity, as Shabika mentioned in my bio, I absolutely jumped at the chance, because I've known for more than a year, the entire time we had started, that I'd been here, that we needed this, and any help we could get would be welcome. So when they told me that this required 16 weeks, 2 hours a week, somewhere between 8 and, eight or more people, I thought, yeah, never. No one's ever gonna. We had an amazing team of anywhere from 8 to 15 people at any given time. Of course, people's schedules fluctuate, but really great participation. We could not have done the program without the U of I extension, without the Benton Institute, and without the people who were really, there, showing up, asking the questions, bringing their expertise. One of the team members, the team consisted of someone from the hospital, someone from our community college, someone from one of our local high schools, a couple people from our farm bureau, and let's see. Oh, and then a couple of internet service providers. And that mix, as well as our local rural energy co-op, the mix of people that we got from all over our county was absolutely imperative to its success. I can't possibly, as one person, understand all of the different aspects. No one person can. And so having that collaboration, having the people who were there and involved and understanding what they were needing so that they could communicate that, and just letting people have the space to have their voice from their perspective was just, it was amazing. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, just because we've got a presentation that we ended up with at the end of the Broadband Breakthrough program. Let me go back to the home screen here. This was put together. So I don't know if everyone knows what the Broadband Breakthrough program is, but for the most part, it was, education. We put out surveys for our county, and they helped us understand, U of I Extension helped us put together an amazing survey and said, okay, now go put this out and see what people need. And this was the part that I was really excited about, because I've said from the beginning, we have no idea where, we can't possibly know where we want to go unless we know where we are. And that's what this helped us do better than anything. So the surveys went out, and this was a site that again, Roger Pavey with WRC helped me put together. It was invaluable. This is part of our website. If you go to growhancock.com later and want to see this again, I'll make sure that Shabika and Nancy have this link, but it's out there, and it's, pretty up to date as of right now. This is our lovely courthouse here in Hancock County. It gives a little bit of education, which is necessary, because one of the things that we found here in Hancock County is that, for the most part, the residents didn't really understand the difference between Wi-Fi and fiber and cell service. And, really it was kind of going, okay, let's start in kindergarten and work our way up. There were some people, of course, who did, but there were some business owners who were saying, oh, I have Wi-Fi, so it's okay. I'm good. But one of the questions we wanted to find out is, what is good enough? And so we went through this whole, how fast is fast enough? This was a good one, because if you click on these, this is all very interactive. So if you go through this, it'll tell you how quickly You can download, Roger apparently has young children because they were playing video games and they wanted to download the Call of Duty Warzone. And so these will tell you how long each one would take based on how fast, what your speeds are. So giving people sort of a quick example of how to understand that a little bit better. Little quiz, you can kind of, you can connect your answers here, figure out whether or not you passed, which I'm not going to go through that here. But one of the things that we found was the most, I'll say one of the most useful tools that we got out of the broadband breakthrough was Shabika and her team with the mapping. It was unclear to us when we started what we were looking for, like who already has decent internet and what does that mean? So trying to figure out those types of things were difficult to start with. This kind of helped cleared it up, so you can go see who is served, underserved, and unserved, and what each of those things mean. More mapping, again, an invaluable tool to us, just to be able to find out exactly, as you can see, we're here on the Iowa-Missouri border. For those of you who don't know where Hancock County is, let's see, we're going to just kind of keep going. Our survey results, this helped us figure out how we wanted to proceed, what our plan was going to look like, coming from, what are people even looking for? Are people happy with their internet? That was one of the most important things too, because I think to be able to, everybody says, oh yeah, faster is better, but how are you using that? How much do you really need? And that was one of the things that I found was really valuable about having an internet service provider as part of our team. It was very important to have them say, okay, well, here's what can be done. Here's how far you can go. When people were answering their survey questions, I got a lot of phone calls. Well, what does this mean? How does that work? And I was back and forth with my ISPs pretty consistently because I needed the education as well. So it did help us identify these 3 priority areas for our future development. You can, again, this being an interactive situation, it kind of pops up and gives you some factoids and some different things like that. The LiDAR assets that was a really neat map. We got to find out what assets could be used to put the Wi-Fi, the fixed wireless equipment, so that we could send that signal farther. So much good stuff that I literally don't have enough time to say all of what we got out of this program. So, and I don't want to get too crazy. One of the things that was really unique that we found out about our position is that we have a lot of internet service providers for such a rural community. Hancock County has in the county about 17,600 people, according to the census. We have, I think, not including cell services, we have 8 internet service providers that cover one part or all of our areas of our county. And so a lot of people talked about, okay, well, do we need a co-op? There wouldn't be any sense. We would actually be competing with too many other people. So we wanted to make sure that we really looked at the internet service providers that were interested in working with us. In our case, we had a couple who had said, look, we are as far as we want to go into Hancock County, unless you need us. But we had another, couple of service providers that were saying, no, we're happy to fill that gap. We want to make sure that we get, the rural broadband to as far into the region as possible, far into the rural, the rural areas as that we can. Just And again, to give you guys a little bit of insight to Hancock County, in 2021, 70% of our GDP was ag-based. Most farmers, from the surveys that we got, most farmers said, we don't have enough access. We don't have enough speeds. We could do more if we could. That's what this slide is discussing. We learned about precision agriculture. We worked really closely with our Farm Bureau director and board president, and we found quite a bit. I did not realize until we went through this how affected farming can be by technology. I just had no idea. So there's some studies here that talk about, what could possibly be done. These are some of the facts again that we ended up with, just figuring out just in Hancock County what we could what we could be doing if we had better broadband. You can see the corn and soybean maps. These were also brought to us by through the program. Really sort of again, I keep saying invaluable, but really invaluable information. I've already had several people from some of my meetings with the Farm Bureau saying they've used this to go out and talk to their service providers and say, that type of thing, and kind of negotiate, say, what more can we do? What are we missing? How can we help? Farm economy is huge here, if you can imagine, since we are such a low population. This gives you, again, I don't want to take the time. You guys can all take a look at this whenever you have the time. I'll make sure that you guys have that. This is one of the things that I really want to touch on is MTC is McDonough Telephone Cooperative. They received an $18 million grant during our process of the broadband breakthrough. 16 million of those dollars will be spent expanding fiber, into Hancock County. And we are so grateful. And that is partially why we started this. We want to make sure that we're supporting the internet service providers, because from my perspective as an economic development director, we aren't the ones who are going to be applying for the grants. We aren't the ones who are going to be, putting the fiber into the ground or doing the footwork. We are going to be here as support, and we're here to facilitate whatever it is the internet service providers might need to get what they're looking for, which is funding and support and potentially easements, or just talking to the different community leaders. Again, I connected the Farm Bureau, so those connections are almost as important as the money itself. And I say that almost because we all know that there's no need for connections if there's no money. So yes, this is kind of the end of it. And these are all the people who, this is our entire team, all of the different entities that worked with us. We were, again, just so grateful to the whole program. And we've come out, now we are working, now we're kind of in this, I would say, a bit of a holding pattern. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here. Based on the fact that we do have two different internet service providers, Nextlink and MTC, that I mentioned before, are both receiving grants. So Nextlink has got $4 million out of two different grants that they are expanding their towers in Hancock County. And as I mentioned, the 16 million that is coming to MTC. That being said, both are waiting on, the red tape portion of it. And so we're kind of waiting to, I connect with them almost weekly and say, okay, are we there yet? So, just checking to make sure that they don't need something from us that would be necessary to get them as they move forward. So I see that there's a lot of chats. I have not looked because I'll get sidetracked. So I'm not sure if anybody had any questions about any of that.
Thank you so much, Sam. I think really like the presentation, the work that you've done. Firstly, the idea of putting it in a website so that it's easily accessible and it's a report. It's not a report, it's more interactive. People can go through it, and just like communicating broadband in a way that makes sense to different audiences. Like with the gaming, like how long does it take to download a game? That's just amazing.
And I will say too, the other piece of that is now that we know that, you know, we're going out and doing, and I say there's a group of us on the team that get together every so often, and we'll set up, you know, we'll go into a community and provide some education, and we'll use that website and say, look, come here, you know, look through this, you know a little bit more about it. And then if you have questions, come and ask us and see how you're affected by these grants, see, you know, how this can help you in your business. It's been really great for as an education piece as well. So.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And like just a few other highlights, I'd say, like, you know, using the survey and mapping to set goals and understand the needs of the community, the farming community that's so big in Hancock County, and then really like how that's translated into partnerships and like supporting ISPs, which is also one of the factors that's kind of valued in a lot of state and federal broadband programs. So that's great. I see that there are a lot of introductions in the chat. I'd like to remind everybody, if you have questions for Samantha, please feel free to like put them in the chat. We'll get to them after Jesse's presentation, all question and answer towards the end. So thank you so much, Sam.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. And now Jesse, so the ISP perspective, a lot of you might have heard from Jesse in like previous webinars if you've been following us, or if you've attended past Illinois Office of Broadband Programming. So really happy to have you again, Jesse. A short introduction for Jesse. So Jesse Shackleton has over 29 years of combined experience in safety, operations, engineering and team building, and business development in distributing electric and broadband services. He currently serves as the Director of Broadband Operations at Joe Carroll Energy, a not-for-profit cooperative. Jesse was instrumental in leading efforts that secured several multi-million-dollar grant awards to build out fiber-to-the-premise networks in rural northwestern Illinois. Additional community outreach efforts led to 3 million ARPA allocation from a local county as a result of participating in the Accelerate Illinois Broadband Planning Program. Jesse continues to lead the co-op team and seeking additional funding to extend much needed fiber to the home services to remaining rural areas in the state, and community outreach, collaboration, and cooperation remain vital to all the work that he's done in the state and all the different counties. Jesse, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to pass it on to you and maybe learn a little more about the partnership that you have in Illinois and all the amazing work that you're doing. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Shabika, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, on this beautiful, hot Midwest summer day, I think about the only thing hotter than the temperature is this topic. So really, we're going to focus today about, as Shabika said, going to focus on our partnership opportunities that really evolved in part because of the broadband breakthrough in the Accelerate Illinois program. Proved to be hugely successful with one of our counties, Whiteside County, and I'll speak to that here in a short bit. And I'm going to share my screen and let me know when this comes up. Okay, are we good, Shabika?
Yeah, looks
screen
good.
Share. All right, excellent. So you see broadband funding, partnerships, and project development as kind of the title to this presentation. But really, I kind of cluster all that into an outreach initiative because I can't stress how significantly important outreach is at the forefront of everything that we do. Originally, we, as the ISP, as a local co-op, were almost myopically focused on the funding, which so many people are, and that's what we talk about a lot. We talk about the dollar signs, the amount of funding that's available, and then in comparison to the amounts that our projects are going to cost, and then we try to go seek that funding. And so part of that process, we obviously want to put in a really solid, complete application that includes things like letters of support. What I have found through experience through multiple grant programs is really that outreach initiative, including the letters of support. That is the tip of the spear. And you have a whole bunch of these initiatives in the beginning, like in the project management world, these start initiatives. These things go on concurrently. So as we're going out getting a letter of support that we kind of bring back and we're applying that, attaching that to ultimately what becomes a feasibility plan. And we're really looking at the dollar signs of our grant application and our budgets. But at the same time, we're talking to the very people that are going to help us with the rest of the issues at hand. And that really starts to tie into some of the digital equity initiatives, the adoption and the inclusion piece. So when you have that circle of trusted partners at the table, you're able to talk to that same very group about all of these things, and you start to be able to structure and plan how you can kind of divide and conquer on these initiatives. So I just wanted to point that out initially, and you'll see some of that, I think, come through as we have our discussion here today. Okay, that need to advance the slide here. It will let me, there we go. Okay, so as discussed, we are a cooperative. I don't say we're unique in the space, but to be a cooperative, I think puts us really in a key position to help close the digital divide, especially as an electric co-op. We helped close the electric divide back in the late 30s. We were incorporated by the farmers and rural homes that we served back in 1939 to do just that, to bring electricity to the farms and homes that didn't have it in the rural areas. So the folks in our region, through a true grassroots effort, filed and applied for and started the co-op. Joe Carroll Energy is our first 2-county footprint. Joe Davies and Carroll County hyphenated. So really focusing on improving the quality of life for our rural members is obviously near and dear to our core business. So we really felt like we were a natural fit to help solve the digital divide issue that we currently see. And of course, this one, everybody has a different version of this right here. Call it a circle of opportunity or whatever, but these are all of our motivations, right? From all our respective positions. Everybody here on this call represents and probably hones in on a certain specific area here. But at the end of the day, collectively, this is our cause. This is what I like to call our North Star. So when we get the people together and we want to be focused on a common goal and why we're doing this, we can pull in from different elements of each one of these. And if this is not enough motivation, well, then the money also comes into play. Unprecedented funding, of course. What you see headlines being called and touted as generational funding. And I think if you've attended enough of these webinars, there's such a great job with all the key players here to continue educating everyone. You've seen all this and you're aware of these general funding amounts. Certainly unprecedented, but again, we can't lose track of, just paying for it and building out this infrastructure is just one piece to the big picture and the objectives throughout the full digital equity plan. So I'm going to keep putting a plug in for that, because we have to be thinking about not just affording to build this out and getting it out there. That's the access piece, but we concurrently must be working on all these different elements on the utilization, the adoption piece of it as well. So I think we all know every relationship that you have, no matter what it is, it's founded on trust. You want to surround yourself with like-minded people that you can trust, people that have a common interest. And so I've shown this before at other presentations. I think this one presented to the Illinois Association of County Board Members with this one. And so these are just some comments from some national trade associations. There's the Illinois Association of County Board Members, just talks about their mission and their vision. Of course, NACO, the National Association of Counties, for example, and then our national trade association, the NRECA, which is the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association. And you start to read through some of these and you definitely start to see the synergies. I just have one more slide that just continues a few more. And of course, there in the middle, a little shout out. I love this one from the Benton Institute. We work better when we work together. If you support closing the digital divide, we should explore how a joint effort can help us fulfill our missions. And it's what I'm showing are all these missions that are up there. We're all saying it. Now it's time to do it. And of course, the last one, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Again, surround yourself with like-minded people that you can trust, where it's not just a job, it's not just a career, but you can tell when it's more of a calling for somebody, when they are truly vested in the interest of the people that we serve in these rural communities. That's how you know you have your core team, your critical mass to move forward with a successful program. Then we have all kinds of guidance out there. This one I took right from NTIA's website, and this one I believe was in the digital equity piece. I mean, there's a lot of FAQs and information out there. But this is one I just grabbed out there from Broadband USA NTIA site. And all of us fit in here somewhere. And it kind of ties back to that circle of opportunity. But this just it's a guidebook, right? Again, it gives you kind of some general guidance. Likewise, this one came from the Fiber Broadband Association's Workforce Development Guidebook. So again, digital equity, now all of a sudden I flipped over into workforce development, but you can see the structure, there's a lot of synergies there. And it's the same players. So whether you're talking digital equity, workforce development, or really just going out and executing a feasible plan to put in a grant and secure enough funding to build it, all of the key main players, if you are truly and strategically focused on putting together the right team at the beginning, it will definitely, everything else will much easier fall into place. I just presented down in Orlando earlier this week at Fiber Connect. It's the Fiber Broadband Association's annual conference. It had record numbers in attendance. And by the way, every day there was a workforce development panel discussion. That's one that I presented on, largely because we could secure the funding and we could do all of that. But if we don't have the key people in place to build it, the skilled trades, et cetera, to build it, all of that effort will be for naught if we have a major gap there. So we need to keep a focus on that as well. I'm coming in on the last couple of slides here. So what we did as an example, this is workforce development just to show you, we took, I'll just go back one, we took a guide like this, but because of local outreach initiatives where it's like, hey, I am not the expert in everything as the local cooperative. I certainly have a passion, a vested interest, and a calling to want to get this job done, but I need to circle myself with some key players who are more experts in certain areas, more so than I am. So here I reached out to Best Inc. You see their logo up there, the business employment skills team serving Northwest Central Illinois. And that's an example of how quickly, just in a matter of weeks, we had this MOU, a very simple 1.5-page memorandum of understanding. We pulled all these key players, and the list is even bigger than this now. But all of these people were vested in putting their best foot forward to help us address the workforce gaps that we're seeing, and want to make sure that we have enough workforce here in Northwest Illinois. These are great paying jobs. We have an opportunity to take kids from these rural communities who might have little or unclear direction coming out of high school, and what are they going to do? And we can provide them with some wonderful opportunities in the broadband space to not only make a good career out of it, but really to really serve their communities in a great way as well. So this came together, and since then we've applied for and did receive a $110,000 grant. Best Inc. was the lead applicant on that, and that was through the DCEO here on an apprenticeship expansion grant. And we're going to launch with that grant. We're going to launch the Fiber Broadband Association's Optic Path course at Morrison Tech, and that's just step one. I mean, that's just we're just getting started with this initiative. So again, it just shows that this is in addition to all of the other grants that we're writing on the backside for the Connect Illinois program on the access side to build out fiber. So again, being focused on the great big picture and having a core team around you is key. And again, I kept putting in a plug on the digital equity piece. There's more than one area than just the access. Again, that's just the first part of it. Obviously, affordability is so important throughout all of our rural regions. So I know we provide, and a lot of the ISPs do provide access to the Affordable Connectivity Plan, the ACP program. We also are what they call ETC certified. So we also can provide the FCC Lifeline, which is an additional $9.25. Those two can be coupled together. But we do have a core team. Sometimes the application process that the actual individuals, households have to do themselves can be a little bit daunting. So we certainly do what we can to help walk them through that process. And again, the last slide I have here is a shout out back to Shabika and the whole team at the Broadband Lab and what they're doing at the at Illinois Connect Illinois program. So if you don't go there a lot, all of these wonderful resources are available at the websites there, and so much. I use it all the time, and I just really love the information that's there and the breakdown that you can do and how simplified you've made it on the mapping process. And again, the efforts, and a shout out, Shabika, because I know near and dear to your heart is the map. And you know, the federal maps, there's been issues for years now in terms of the accuracy or inaccuracies, really was the main focus. And because the state really grabbed that bull by the horns and took the initiative to make that more granular, make the maps more accurate, that has proven to be extremely beneficial. So we thank you and your team for that. And again, you know, I took that little excerpt right out of the 5-year action plan. If you haven't seen it, it is, I believe, 298 pages, PDF pages anyway, of wonderful reading and resource. So I encourage you to go look at that. It's published out there. But there you see it, the mission that includes access, adoption, and applications. So we're looking forward to working to close all of those gaps concurrently as we move forward with all our respective programs. And I believe that concludes my presentation on that. Shabika, you did want me to speak briefly to the Whiteside County. If you'd like, I can elaborate further on that.
Sure, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay. I will stop sharing at that point, and we'll just have more of a one-on-one discussion. So.
And thank you so much, Jesse, for the lovely shout outs.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that. Like, you know, all our partners and us, and really appreciate the work that you are doing in the counties, really. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, wonderful. I know all of us, I think, working in rural America, we all wear about 10 different hats. And so I know we're all stretched thin, but you guys are doing great work there. So thank you. Okay, so the Whiteside County Initiative, so that was part of cohort number 1, and I actually sat on that team with Whiteside County, and at the end of that process, that allowed us to continue to develop our relationship. And I think at the end of the day, Whiteside County felt that it was a good fit, a best fit for them to partner up with us. They had a $3 million ARPA allocation. Well, they had, I think it was around 11 million in total. And they carved out about 3 million of that to allocate towards a partnership, an ISP partner, to continue pursuing the Connect Illinois grants, to ultimately have ubiquitous coverage of reliable, future-proof high-speed internet across Whiteside County. And we were selected to do so. So we're already in the process of submitting multiple applications through the Connect Illinois program. So we're waiting for that first phase of review to complete. And so we're really excited to be partnering with them, and that going through that process really netted us that opportunity to partner up like we did. So very excited there. In addition to that, prior to that, we have had, and you mentioned it early on the intro, we've had success with some federal programs, specifically through the USDA, RUS. We've had one Reconnect program that was a $14 million grant, $18 million project, $14 million grant. And then we've had a couple smaller Community Connect awards as well. And those are just smaller $3 million projects, but still much needed and greatly received by us. And those have been really successful build outs to date. In fact, one of them we just completed about a year ago, and on passing 420 premises, and we have a 90% take rate. So that shows you how much it was needed in those rural parts of our counties. So
Great, awesome.
yeah, I can open it up for Q&A as well, Shubika.
Thanks, Jesse. Really appreciate that. I also really like how you took it beyond broadband access and how, the partnership goes beyond that. It's also about digital equity and then the opportunity around workforce development and all of that. So really appreciate that. I see we have a few questions, and Sam, thank you so much for answering them in the chat. We do have a question about feasibility studies. So basically, if the speakers, if you have gone through the process of carrying out a feasibility study for your project, and if you have recommendations, that'd be great. One of my colleagues, Anita, also posted in the chat, we do have the tech program that's running through the state, which also would fund, feasibility studies if that's what is, community is interested in. It's called the Digital Equity Kickstarter Grant, so abbreviated as TEC. The next applications are due September 1st, but passing it on to our speakers if they have any recommendations or experience with feasibility studies.
I can start and say, no, I don't. I have not done a feasibility study. This broadband breakthrough was sort of my first, look into doing any kind of, studies, surveys, anything. So I think Jesse will probably be the more vocal person here.
Yeah. Well, as an ISP, a cooperative being more in that, I'll call it utility space, we do the feasibility studies in-house. We typically we have key consultants, whether it's electric, we actually cooperatized, and we have about 6,000 natural gas members as well. And of course, now our broadband division, where we're about 4,000 fiber subscribers and growing by about 2,000 a year, roughly. But when it comes to feasibility studies, so because they're in-house or we work with our consulting groups, I would say, depending on who you are, yes, they are an expense, absolutely, but obviously a necessary expense. And so depending on what your funding capabilities are to cover that expense, as Shubika said, you can apply for grants if you need some help with that. And then I would also reach out, I'm sure if I'm not sure, I know Benton Institute can provide a lot of great information and make recommendations on trusted partnerships and other consultants that can offer those services. So again, it's more, yeah.
Thanks, Jesse. So we'll also share the Broadband Labs email address, with the presentation material. So feel free to reach out to us with specifics on what you're looking for, and we can certainly provide you with some recommendations for firms or organizations that do such kind of work so that you can, get started in that direction. Thanks, Sam and Jesse. Another question that we have is, and I think this is for you, Jesse. So it is great to see so many rural cooperatives. What are some of your thoughts on urban cooperatives, or if you've seen that?
Great question. We have actually been approached about the opportunity to reach out and serve some small unserved or underserved pockets within urban environments. And it's intriguing because, trust me, I'm so passionate about this. I just want to help everybody, but I realize I have to be realistic and practical about it. So I'm not real familiar with the urban cooperatives. I know the housing cooperatives exist throughout these urban communities. So, but I'm as far as a broadband provider cooperative in a larger urban or metro area, I don't know that I'm not familiar with that. And that would be probably pretty unique. And others, at the Broadband Lab or like at Benton Institute, they might possibly have some other ideas, but I am not familiar with that model existing.
Jesse, I would think that it's almost like obviously we're very rural, but we have a large amount of providers. And so having a cooperative would really just compete. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you have so many ISPs available, specifically, I'm guessing in an urban situation. But
yeah, exactly. I see Adrian put in Chattanooga. So other than a cooperative, very similar to a co-op model is a municipal model, and Chattanooga EPB is a large municipal in obviously Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then they did reach out and serve a larger area. I believe it's Hamilton County are the rural areas outside of that. they were front runners in this whole thing. I want to say they built out their broadband network in the early 2000s through 2010. And they are definitely, in fact, now they're like providing 25 gig packages at the residential level. So they definitely are very proactive and forward thinking, and they stay out in front of the pack. But I would say, possibly some of these municipal networks and programs might be an option in some of these larger metro areas.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. The other, so we're still waiting for if anybody in the audience has questions for the speakers, feel free to put it in the chat. In the meantime, I can actually, pose a question. So we've been hearing about partnerships and everything, like, from the community's perspective, from the service provider, just trying to get a sense from both of you, Sam and Jesse, how do you think either could benefit each other? Basically, what would make it easier for communities to partner with ISPs, and what would make it easier for ISPs to basically partner with communities? So if you can share some perspectives there.
Betsy, would you like to go first, or you want me to?
Please, ladies.
Okay, so from my perspective, I think one of the things that I have been encouraging each of my communities within Hancock County, we're obviously one large community, but also a mixture, is to make sure that broadband is part of your community plan, strategic planning, all of it. It has to be. There is no way. It is. We keep saying, I was like, imagine that where we were before, was kerosene lamps, and now we're bringing in electricity. That's what this is, guys. Because we have a lot of, again, rural communities tend to have a little bit older. A lot of people like, do we really need an example for you is that there is one community that 4 years ago now, before the pandemic, the company the ISP that we're working with said, hey, do you want us to come out and, bring fiber to your community? It's the next thing. And they said, nah, we're good. Our speeds are good enough. It's fine. And now that it's, $40,000+ to lay fiber in the ground, they can't afford to get it there. And they're trying to backtrack and say, oh my gosh, what were we doing? It's important to be working, to be proactive, to future-proof. And so when working with these communities, having somebody who has some knowledge about what they're talking, why? Why is it important? What are we even talking about it? What's the difference between Wi-Fi and fiber? This is what people, need to know. And then coming in, and when an ISP comes in and they're saying, hey, we want to come into your community, help them help you. That's every single time. Help them help you. And maybe it's not the best fit, but gosh, do your due diligence, Go ahead.
Yeah, I great comments, Sam. To add to that, for us on the outreach side, we certainly do not pretend to make any assumptions, make no assumptions, I guess would be my point, that what somebody else's issues are. So when we go into each one of our small rural communities, when you talk to the county board or county board member, a city council, a village board, a township board, a chamber of commerce, local hospitals, the local county farm bureau office, really getting out and meeting people where they are and hearing what their issues are, that is so key to be able to know how to construct the overall plan for that region. And so that's been a real key element for us. And, things like, for example, through this, for those of you that have been through the program, the 16-week program, you spend one session learning about easements and land rights in the state of Illinois and easement laws. Well, if you meet one landowner, you meet one landowner. Just because we're doing something great for rural America doesn't mean that landowner is going to necessarily sign their easement. And that's where you can lean on other people in the ag communities and the neighbors. And this is where that grassroots effort comes into play, is you can have other team members come in that maybe help talk to that individual. And then hopefully you get the easement and you can continue your build and it doesn't hold things up. So there's just these small little nuances that can have really big impacts to the project. So again, getting out there, I think, is key. Something else, I'd like to, it's not just as simple as getting the money and paying for it and you get your application awarded. There's a lot of stuff that, and as an electric coming into the broadband space, it was drinking from a fire hose, but a lot of all the stuff that goes on in the background for the continued life cycle that you own and operate that system. Owning and operating that system and complying with all the laws and regulations and rules to operate that. Don't underestimate what that's going to take, because you want this to be future proof. You want it to be reliable and scalable well into the future. So just make sure that when you're having these conversations and going through your due diligence, that you account for that. In fact, just coming back from Orlando, listening to broadband leaders from across the world, the next quote digital divide issue isn't going to be access. It's going to be the quality of the data and the bandwidth, things that we don't necessarily think about, like latency and jitter, because the evolution of the applications that are riding on all these networks, regardless what the medium is going to require us to all of a sudden not be left behind, because now all of a sudden people in rural areas have all this capacity, but now they suffer from cyber sickness or latency issues. So again, full picture, making sure that we are developing systems and we do it right and we do it once. So
really appreciate your perspectives on that, Sam and Jesse. So what I'm hearing is, on the community side, it's really about prioritizing broadband, going through the process, making sure that you really, as a community, know what you're looking for with your mission and vision around broadband. And due diligence is something that's happening on both sides. Yes, making sure you sort of just make sure you're the right partners for each other. And on the ISP side, it's more about making sure you learn about the community, their specific rules and regulation. It's not it's just not about the network. It's about the individual community needs. So really, recognizing that, and again, making no assumptions. Yes, sounds really good. So we are still waiting for taking questions. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Meanwhile, another thing that we could discuss is basically challenges that you might be facing. So Sam, you initially mentioned in your presentation that you have these, ISPs really starting to build out, but there's some redlining and hold up with, a bunch of other procedures that have to be taken care of. So basically any challenges that you're facing around the implementation part of things, and same goes for Jesse.
I'll tell you I think our biggest challenge is people hear internet and they think, oh, this will happen now and fast, and it won't. I mean, it's not a fast process. Like I mentioned, MTC received this, millions of dollars in grants, and it's fantastic. That's probably a 5-year build out, and they're a year behind. I mean, and that's just based on supply chain. And, again, they're waiting on EPA studies. They're waiting on easements. There's so much that goes into, as Jesse probably knows better than anyone, and could probably speak much more directly to. But from our perspective, we go into these communities, we educate, we say, hey, this is a need, please support this. Don't, farmers, work with them. And they're like, okay, when is this happening? It's not as easy as calling them up and saying, hey, can I get on your list to get your fiber from the road to my house? It's not, it's not just, can I get on the list? It hasn't been built yet. We're still working on, getting it where it needs to be. This is a 10-year project minimum. And then we have to say, okay, now where are we at? Where else do we need to go? And then continue to improve. So time is our biggest challenge. And again, education, because everybody needs something different. For example, I have fiber to my home. I have the fastest internet I've ever had. I'm completely spoiled now. And then I speak to somebody else who's, literally a mile away, and they're like, I can barely get speeds of 10.4, download and upload. And I'm going, oh, that's so, it's frustrating, because you can't have these types of conversations when people are, again, that digital equity, it's so off. based on who you're speaking to and what their situation is. So perspective and time, those are my biggest challenges.
Yeah, time, I totally agree with you on that one. You know, we looking at everything full big picture, you would hate to get the funds, go through all the processes of the environmental reviews, which do take time, and it has caused some delays for us as well in our other programs. But to get all the way there and then either one, not have the material, or have all the material, have all your contractors ready to go, all your contracts in place, but then not have the easements, or have all of those things in place and then not have adequate workforce.
Right.
So, or even in a worst case scenario, maybe have low take rates that you needed based on your feasibility plan. All of a sudden that's well below what you had thought. And maybe it's because you didn't do enough effort on digital relevance, helping to educate people on how it's relevant to them, so that they even know that this would benefit their quality of life. So you have to be thinking about that full picture. But I would say from a timing perspective, yes, going through some of the red tape, easements, we continue to be challenged with the timely build out based on that. But that's, you know, we're working through that with one landowner at a time, and it gives us an opportunity to have some really good in-depth conversations with a lot of our members. I will say that. So we are making lemonade out of lemons in some cases. So, but yeah, those are definitely probably our biggest challenges.
Thank you so much for those perspectives. Definitely leaving us with, like, you know, certain thoughts as we're having this BEAD funding and all of that coming in, like, you know, issues around supply chain, easements. And again, you know, even now trying to convince some residents that this is something that you need and could be really helpful. Thank you so much for that. I know we have a hard stop at 1, so I'm going to end with question and answers here. Thank you so much, Jesse and Sam, for joining us. I also want to bring everybody's attention to Adrienne's comment in the chat. There's going to be a second round of broadband breakthrough in the spring of 2024. So if anybody is interested, there's contact information for Bill Coleman, who's going to be leading the program. We'll also send it in the communication later on so that you have this information. And again, as Sam mentioned, we have some really good reviews about the program. So definitely, if you're a county that's interested, definitely apply for that. I hope everybody had a great time. Thank you so much for joining us, and appreciate all the great work and the presentation, Sam and Jesse. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.